Hello, everyone. I recently came across, I would characterize as an extraordinary video. It truly is. It's a gem, a diamond in the rough. I'm going to play this clip for you. I don't need to say much in preparation for it. This is NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg saying that weapons are quite literally the way to peace in Ukraine. Take a look at this.
It is extremely important that President Putin doesn't win this war, partly because it will be a tragedy for the Ukrainians, but it will be very dangerous for all of us. Because then the message to authoritarian leaders, not only to Putin, but also other authoritarian leaders, is that when they use brutal force, when they violate international law, they achieve what they want. And that will be a very bad and dangerous lesson. It will make the world more dangerous and us more vulnerable. And that's the reason why, if we want a negotiated peaceful solution to the war in Ukraine, we need to provide military support to Ukraine. That's the only way. Weapons, they are the way to peace.
Wow, that is incredible. And it's incredible, yes, due to the contradictions, and we'll get into the contradictions, of course. But it's incredible because this kind of speech that contains this incendiary vocabulary um, that is fueled with these assertions that he's asserting here is looked at by the mainstream media, the press, and a sizable portion of people around the world. Now these people are a majority in the West, in America, and they've been propagandized to hell and back. We all know that the majority of the world does not agree with this nonsense that he's saying. But a sizable amount of people will look at this and think that he's saying something heroic, something correct, something that has very adequate standing that needs to be said. But when in reality, this guy, what he's saying here is, I mean, it spells out doomsday, and the contradictions are at an all-time high, and none of it really makes much sense. So let's just get into what he said here. He says, to start us off, it is extremely important that President Putin doesn't win this war. This remark in and of itself this can be a 20-minute video. It won't be, but it can, because what is the definition of a win in that region of the world where that war is going on? Now, I've talked about this in the past, in past videos, several of them. Many people have, people better than me that are better at explaining this. But they've talked about what a win would be for Ukraine, for Russia, and above all, for the United States. Well, put very plainly here, and there are many different ways I can go with this, but I'll just go this way. A win for the United States in this region of the world would be for this money that they're siphoning or putting into Ukraine for military means to work. It hasn't. For the Russian military to be pushed out of Ukraine, they haven't been. And for Vladimir Putin to be pushed out of office, to be pushed out of power in Russia, he hasn't been, needless to say. That is the pipe dream of Washington, and they've been quite out and obvious with their wants. They've outright said they want Russia to be destroyed. They want to weaken it. They want to weaken their ties to China. And China, of course, is a big player in this conversation because with weakening Russia, they want to weaken China as well. A war on Russia to the United States is a war on China, and vice versa. You cannot separate the two. They're inseparable, especially at this point, now that they've been pushed so close together with the ridiculous policies of the U.S. But he says it's important for President Putin doesn't win this war, but he doesn't outline what would spell out a victory necessarily and what it would take to get that victory, because so far it has not been working. He also goes on to say that it'd be a tragedy for the Ukrainians. Well, it already is a tragedy for the Ukrainians. They've lost, I've seen numbers over 100,000 lives so far. I mean, it's truly gruesome, the effects. of what war can have on a population and a place. I mean, it's been savaged, reduced to rubble in many senses, and all this money that's been going there, is that same amount of money or something similar to it going to be used to rebuild the place after this is all said and done, even if they do achieve this victory that they're apparently destined to achieve under the guise that this man is, of course, seeing this through. And he also says that it'll be very dangerous for all of us if Vladimir Putin succeeds in his exploration here. But he doesn't explain how it will be dangerous for us. I doubt you will see a change in your life because Vladimir Putin is successful at what he's doing in Ukraine. But this is an assertion that Lindsey Graham previously made, that he'll go all over the world capturing states and we'll have to put him down. You know, this is the fantasy world of them that they live in, that we as in the United States and their allies has to be the Superman, and they must take out the evil quote unquote character that they're framing Vladimir Putin as. He also goes on to say that this will send a message to the authoritarian leaders, not only to Putin, but other authoritarian leaders, that when they use brutal force, when they violate international law, they achieve what they want. Well, here is where the contradictions come in. Yes, when you violate international law, when you use brutal force, you do achieve what you want. The same way that the United States, the same way that NATO, and of course by definition the United States, bombed Libya, destroyed the place, overthrew their government, and reduced it to quite literally nothing. Yeah, they got what they want. They used force to do it. They violated international law. The same way the U.S. invaded Iraq, destroyed the region. Any different ways you can go with that, but stealing countries' natural resources. The same thing with Afghanistan, with the oil. Used brutal force, undermined international law. They got what they want. And the list can go on here of the different explorations that the United States government has had when they use brutal force, when they violated international law, and they're getting what they want. I mean, not even brutal force. We can look at the sanction policies, which are just as brutal force, if not even worse. Now, on paper, it doesn't look that bad because bombs aren't falling from the sky. But when you're preventing things like medicine and food from going into a place, the way that they're doing with Iran and aiding the Saudis with the blockade on the Yemeni people, and the list goes on. Venezuela, Cuba, with the economic wars that they're waging against them. Look at the sanctions that's currently going on against Russia, though they're fighting back and they're doing a great job in doing so. This is force here. These are policies that are illegal under international law. Nothing is said about it. Nobody's going to prosecute them for it. The contradictions stand. He says it would make the world more dangerous and more vulnerable. I wonder, letting Nazis proliferate in a certain region of the world while weapons are continuously funneled to them, and that is allowed to go on. I wonder how, which would really make the world a more dangerous place. I previously thought that Nazis were bad, that this wasn't something we would have wanted to allow. The massacring of innocent people in the eastern regions of this part of the world, not much was said about it. That seems like something that would endanger individuals. And he says that if they want a negotiated peaceful solution to the war in Ukraine, they need to provide military support. Well, so far they've been providing military support. And he says that this is the only way, by the way. But they've been doing this so far, and they're not even close to reaching a peaceful solution. And then, of course, the last line that you can quote for days: weapons are the only way to peace. This is a man that knows nothing. I apologize for that glare. I'm trying to block it with my head. I got to say something about it because it's too much. Anyway, sorry, but I do notice that it's there. Anyway, this is a man that can do nothing but parrot the erroneous ideologies that has been passed down to him these ridiculous policies that he supports. And this is essentially what the World Economic Forum was and is, a bunch of people that are pretending like they're really smart and that they know a whole lot. But in reality, these people are rushing us further and further towards the precipice when situations like the one that he is discussing quite literally threaten us with nuclear war.